Yeah, what's good, Joe? It's your man, the Bigga P, and here to record my thoughts for the tripleheader from last night on Showtime. Um, First of all, I this was a disgraceful card. I'm not even gonna mince words. Like this card, there's no way this card should have aired at all in what in its current in what it was in terms of its current lineup. Um, it was a disgrace from top to bottom, pretty much to me. Every fight had something wrong with it, with the main event being extremely, extremely disgraceful to me. It's funny too because the prelim fights on the for this card were a lot better and competitive than the ones on the main card, and that's a problem. So let me just go ahead and get to it. First fight was Danny Jacobs versus Jacobs-Fletcher. Now, I don't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with this fight originally because, it's because Jared, from what I understand, was ranked higher than Danny. What I do have a problem with this actually being a title fight. Now, what title per se? Oh, it's for the WBA was it regular middleweight title. Now I did a video I think probably sometime last year on the belt situation, and to put it lightly, I'm not a fan of this. But the fact that this fight was designated as a title fight was you know is absolute. It's bullshit. Because the WBA for whatever reason likes to have multiple champions within one division. Um, you have your super, you have your regular, and then you have the interim. Um, and it makes no sense because the champion at that division is Triple G. He's the WBA middleweight champion. He's the one that if you want to call yourself middleweight champion of the WBA, then you got to beat him for the belt. So when I've seen all this regular, title it's bullshit because this pretty much it was just a grab for Danny to actually pick up a title because as everyone knows, most people know in his previous attempt at the title when he tried to pick up from Prague the WBO middleweight title. I mean, there's a lot of circumstances, but he got knocked cold in that fight. Um, with that being said, the fight was pretty much Jacobs nearly putting him out in one, which would have, which would have probably added more to the disgrace as it was. But then after that, he like 2, 3, and 4, he lowers the activity and allows Fletcher to come back in the fight to a degree. And you're wondering, like, is he either A, trying to preserve his energy, preserve his energy, because he may go some rounds because he hasn't gone a whole lot of rounds in some time. Um, so in the fifth round, he pretty much near the end of the round just exploded and finally dropped him again for the second time, and then the referee waved off the fight. Um, I mean, granted, I respect that. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of guts, lots of determination to come back from the situation that Danny came back from cancer, from looking at being actually paralyzed, and to come back into still box at a high level. But there's still unanswered questions. Like in this fight, like just the fact that he was such a lull in his activity prior to the first and then the second and final knockdown. It didn't really sit right with me in terms of his performance. I mean, it was okay. The finish was okay, but it wasn't anything to write home about. Because he probably could, if he had continued what he did in the first one, he probably could have gotten Fletcher out of there in the second or the third round. Because Fletcher was pretty tough. He was actually taking some shots, but I would have given take the same type of energy that he took in the first round. He could have worn him out. He could have finished him in the second and third round. The one thing I did like in that interview, though, was the fact that he called out Quillen. Now, I'm not a big fan of Quillen, too, but Quillen at least has a belt that's not like entirely paper or anything like that. I mean, it's an alphabet title. He's as far as I know, he's the only middleweight champion in that division. Um, so I have no problem seeing a Dan Jacobs Quinn because that's the fight I want to see in the first place, and I hope that fight actually gets made. But I have a hard time calling Danny Jacobs a champion because he hasn't beaten any, he hasn't beaten a champion, championship level opponent as of yet, and the one he did, knocked him out. So that's my thought on that. The next fight was Lamont Peterson versus Jacobs-Santana, I believe. Pretty much Peterson has just been at the. Now Peterson is funny because you have to realize dude has actually held on to that belt since like December 2000, what is it, 11 or so. He's held on to that title for a long time, but now he's so fringe. People, I think they were calling him like a contender when he's not a contender. He actually holds a title at 140. He's the IBF champion at 140, but because of so many circumstances, he's pretty much relegated as like, as like a non-factor. Even Algieri with his WBO titles has gotten more press as of late than Lamont Peterson. And it's in a way, Lamont Peterson doesn't deserve it. He's a good guy, and he's a good fighter. But I think what really hurt his case in terms of champion was the fact that he probably shouldn't be champion because for whatever reason, that fight with Matisse had a 141 catch weight, which effectively took the title out of the picture, and it helped that he got blown away. He got blown away within 3 rounds by Lucas. So pretty much everyone was seeing that Lucas was the champion, seen as like the uncrowned champion in that division for that sanctioning body. Then you got the layoffs, then you have the issues, which the issues with probably PEDs, the fact that well, at least the fact that he had low T and everything like that. All these things were coming to light, really derailed his career. So now he's at a point where now he's facing some pretty decent. He faced Jean in his last fight. Now he's facing Santana, and you would think that he would try to make like a big statement. So at least to get in the ring. I know they've been banning around Garcia-Peterson as the next fight for both of them should they both win. The fight itself was one-sided pretty much, and it's funny because Peterson was landing all types of power punches, but it was just like boring to watch. He was ripping the guy's body, and Santana offered up nothing more than being a punching bag. After some time, he was ineffective offense. There was just nothing there, and luckily the fight was stopped in 10. Because it was just like Peterson has decent pop, but it takes but when you throw all those power punches and it doesn't even look spectacular, doesn't even look boring. That's a problem because I was bored to tears watching that fight. Santana was not a good opponent at all. I can't really blame Peterson for what he did what he had to do. So at this point, like I said, he's still a title holder, and at this point right now, I only want to see Peterson against 2 opponents. Either he rematches Matisse and he puts his title on the line, or he goes and he unifies with Danny, and get some unification going. Those are pretty much the only 2 fights I actually want to see Peterson in now. And then we got the main event. We have undisputed 140-pound champion Danny Garcia versus Rod Salka. Now this of all the fights is, at least the other 2 fights, granted they weren't the best fights, to actually make, but they weren't. In the sense of things, they were what they were. This fight made absolutely no sense. Now most people are like, who the hell is Rod Salka? I watch a lot of boxing. And I watch it from the minor shows to all the big shows, and even Rod himself slipped my radar. It was one I guess I took a gander. Someone mentioned to me that he fought on Showbox, and I took a gander at that one fight that he did, and I wasn't too impressed by it. And I looked at his record, and the only thing that I took from it was that Canelo's brother actually beat him, and then he knocked out He knocked out Lucero, who's been knocked out by pretty much a lot of other notable fighters like Pac, Ponce, and all of them, like that nature. And that's all. That's all I really took from Rod Salka. I wasn't really impressed. And the funny thing with Rod Salka is he's not a light welterweight. He's a lightweight. That's what he was. He spent the majority of his career at lightweight. And was he even ranked as a top 10, top 20 even? No, he was the 77th ranked lightweight. Now, when I heard this fight was actually being proposed, I thought it was some bullshit. Because why would Danny Garcia fight someone like Rod Salka? And this fight was originally for the titles. This was, I mean, it ended up being a non-title affair because Danny didn't really want to make the 140 limit, so they just put it at a catchweight, which probably gave Salka some more money in his pocket. But the fact is, why this fight was even proposed. Now there's a whole. I mean, granted, like if you couldn't find a top, like a top 5 or whatever, there's plenty of notable fighters at 140 that Danny could have fought. And there was plenty of them, but how Rod Salka actually came to be an actual choice is beyond me. I know, I mean, I don't know who is, if it's Heyman or whoever, but they need to be ashamed of themselves for this fight because, and the reason why I'm speculating this is the case, and it seems to be more and more true, is because of what happened in Puerto Rico with the Herrera fight. Because for all intents and purposes, after Danny did his thing against Lucas, basically he was starting to get his props. I was grudgingly giving him props because I'm a big Lucas fan, and I didn't think that Danny had it in him to go to war. So when the fight with Herrera was announced, I had no problem with the fight. I thought, okay, this will be good because it'll be someone different from who Danny has been facing for the last couple of fights. An actual boxer because I was high on Herrera, and I thought, I'm thinking if Herrera's a tough guy, and I think if Danny can actually convincingly beat Herrera, then I truly think that Danny would actually have something. The problem was for this fight is I think that for this fight, Danny's matchmaker or team overlooked Herrera, and they was like, oh, they looked at his record, okay, 7, 8 knockouts, and he's not going to be a problem. And that's what I'm thinking. So now, of course, during that fight, Herrera pretty much boxed Danny's ears off and bust him up pretty good, and Danny got a gift majority decision. And since then, of course, Herrera has gone on to fight again. He fought Perez, and looked great doing it. So, and I think probably the reason why is because that was supposed to be his coming, a tune-up fight, a showcase fight in Puerto Rico, and it failed. So they're like, they need to have someone else. They need to fight someone else, and I think that's probably right. They really dug to the bottom of the barrel, and they picked Rod Salka. And no disrespect to Rod Salka, but he didn't deserve to be on the stage that night. He didn't deserve his opportunity. Now, if Danny wasn't champion, fine, whatever. You can face whoever you want to face. But facing someone like Rod Salka, which is originally supposed to be a title shot, is bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. There's no word, rhyme, or reason around it. It's what it is. It's bullshit. It should have never happened. And the fight itself, I cringed at the fight. I cringed at the knockout. Pretty much what it was. Danny blasts him with a left hook, and Salka, beats his chest, does all this shit. So instead of actually, sidestepping the left hook or putting his hands up to deflect it, Danny decides, okay, you're gonna do this again? Bam, absolutely rips him with another vicious left hook and knocks him out cold before, and of course as he's going down, a towel from the corner slowly flies in the ring once Rod was sent to the bushes with that brutal ass left hook. And most people were probably impressed by the brutality of it. You know, some people were. I wasn't. It was a fight. You know, all I know is I just hope Salka is actually okay. He doesn't suffer, any type of damage from that fight because he had no business being in there, and it showed. And then most people were like, "Oh no, Danny showed, he went to the body. Oh no, he used his jab more." In 2 rounds, you can't really see that. And for 2 rounds, it's not really a good case of anyone improving. He may have added some stuff to the game, but we don't know how it would have been affected, over a course of a fight or a quality, because of what the kind of opponent that Rod Salka is. It's I was reading all the time. Said, like, it was a disgraceful fight, and pretty much what happened to Salka was probably the fight that they wanted to have in Puerto Rico with Herrera, but Herrera actually, was a very talented fighter, is a talented fighter, and gave Danny, pretty much his an unofficial loss. Um, my thoughts is, Salka is pretty much, he's gonna have some notoriety for a little bit. Because I don't see him. He'll probably go back to 135 or whatever he's been doing, and continue to do what he's doing there. As for Danny, there's been enough passes given to him about his, a couple of things that he's been doing as champion. I don't want to see, any tune-ups, whatever, talk about all that shit is dead. I don't want to see Danny in a tune-up fight. I want to see him face, he has Peterson, he has Lucas Matisse rematch if he wants it, and he has Herrera. Herrera is probably the one. Herrera, deserves to fight more than anybody. Anybody deserves another shot at Danny. Those are the 3 fights at 140. Those are easily. And then you have people like Lundy and Pistol, and they have all of them. They're all lurking, there. There's fighters at the top 10 for him to fight, and never, as long as he's champion, they'll never have to resort to facing someone like Rod Salka ever again. It was just such a black eye. The whole triple header was a black eye because it was just. I was reading reports even Oscar didn't even stay for the whole thing. I think he left after the prelims, which would make him a smart man because the prelims were the best part of the whole card. Watching that on Showtime Extreme. Like I said, it was just an overall struggle of a card, and hopefully I never see a fight like Danny Garcia versus Rod Salka again. I can't even begin to remember a champion actually facing somebody of that nature while champion. I know someone tried to use Floyd Mayweather versus Emmanuel Augustus. That's a difference. Number one, there was a big difference. Number one, Augustus I'm pretty sure was higher, was ranked higher than 77. And number two, Augustus had notoriety. He wasn't like a random, he wasn't getting a title shot, but he had notoriety. This wasn't a guy that, he was not a Rod Salka in any type of way. And Danny is, and as far as I know, it's just one of those things because, like I said, I don't think prior to that, that Floyd was in trouble in anything. I'm trying to remember who he actually fought before he actually fought Augustus, but he wasn't in any trouble. He may have been coming off an injury or something like that, I believe. I think that might have been it. So that was probably a reason for, but Danny wasn't coming off no injury. He wasn't coming off an injury. He wasn't coming off a loss. He was coming off a tougher than expected fight from someone who his team and his matchmaker thought, was someone that he'd mow over, and they were wrong. And like I said, I hope I never ever see a fight like this again, ever, from a champion. So that's those are my thoughts about those fights in the card, and thank goodness Showtime will be redeeming itself because next week the triple header plus the Wilder fight. It should be. Just on paper alone, it should be a lot better than what I saw last night. If it's not, then I couldn't even begin to tell you. But I should not. All I know is I should not be disappointed and disgusted by next week's card. So until then, peace.